Welcome back to Us Mint Mysteries. Have you ever held a simple steel penny and wondered if it could secretly be worth thousands or maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars? Well, what if I told you that right now, sitting in an old jar, drawer, or coin folder, you might have one of the most unbelievably rare steel wheat pennies ever struck by the US Mint? These coins, born during wartime, carry not just metal but stories, secrets, and shocking value that could change everything you thought you knew about pocket change. Have you ever looked at an old penny and thought, it's just a piece of steel, how valuable could it really be? Well, the answer might leave you speechless. The 1943D steel wheat penny is one of those coins that tells a story no one expected. A story born out of war, scarcity, and a little bit of mint magic that turned an everyday coin into a potential goldmine for collectors. Back in 1943, America was deep in World War II. Copper was desperately needed for ammunition, shell casings, and electrical wiring for the military. So, the US Mint made a bold decision. They replaced copper in the 1-cent coin with steel coated in zinc. For the first and only time in history, Lincoln cents were struck in steel. Most people saw them as odd-looking gray pennies. But collectors saw something more, a piece of history unlike any other. Now, the Denver Mint produced tens of millions of these coins. But here's where things get interesting. Most of them were heavily used, rusted, or worn away over the decades. But finding one in fine condition, like the one we're talking about right now, still tells a story. Every tiny scratch, every faded wheat stalk, every glint of steel reflects its journey through time. And that's what makes it so fascinating to collectors today. But not all 1943D pennies are created equal. You see, a few rare mistakes known as minting errors turn some of these coins into six-figure treasures. The most famous of all? The 1943D copper wheat penny, a coin that was never supposed to exist. Somehow, a few leftover copper planchets from 1942 slipped into the Denver presses. When they were struck with 1943D dies, they created a mistake so rare that it became legendary. Only a handful are known to exist today, and one of them sold for over $1.7 million at auction. Now, imagine the thrill of holding a steel 1943D penny and wondering, could this one have a secret? Could it be one of those transitional planchet errors or a double die strike that escaped detection for decades? Even in fine condition, unique error varieties can transform an ordinary-looking coin into a breathtaking collector's dream. Let's talk numbers, because this is where it gets exciting. A standard circulated 1943D steel penny might fetch anywhere between 25 cents to a few dollars, depending on the grade. But move up just a bit to a sharp and circulated coin with a bright zinc finish, and you could be looking at $40 to $100 or more. Still modest, right? But here's where the wow factor hits. If your coin happens to show an unusual die, crack, an off-center strike, or that once-in-a-lifetime copper planchet, the value can skyrocket not just a few thousand, but potentially over $450,000 or even more. That's right, a coin most people overlook. As pocket change could secretly be worth more than a luxury car or even a small house. Collectors and treasure hunters across the country still dream of finding that rare piece, the one coin that slipped through the mint's hands and found its way into circulation unnoticed. Some say the odds are tiny, but the truth is, discoveries happen every single year. Someone out there will find the next one, and maybe, just maybe, that person could be you. So the next time you come across a silvery 1943D penny, don't just toss it aside. Take a closer look. Check its color. Pure steel shines gray-blue, but copper glows warm and red. Examine the edges, the date, and that tiny D mint mark, because what looks ordinary could be hiding something extraordinary. And that's the magic of coin collecting. Now, let's turn our attention to a coin that often slips under the radar, but make no mistake, this one has stories buried deep in its silver-gray shine. The 1943S steel wheat penny, struck at the San Francisco Mint, might just be one of the most fascinating wartime coins ever made. And in fine condition, it still holds that mysterious charm that makes collectors' hearts race. Picture it for a moment, the year is 1943. Across the country, copper is scarce. Every ounce is being melted into bullet shells and communication wire for the troops overseas. The U.S. Mint, desperate to conserve copper, shifts to steel, coating it with a thin layer of zinc to prevent rusting. But here's what makes the San Francisco strike special. The S Mint coins were produced in smaller numbers compared to Philadelphia or Denver, and the quality control wasn't perfect. Many came out with tiny die cracks, zinc bubbles, or even weak strikes, all of which, decades later, turned out to be key details that serious collectors now hunt for. Hold one of these in your hand today, and you're holding history, a coin that has survived more than 80 years, through countless hands and countless pockets. The S mark just below the date is your clue that it was struck on the West Coast, at the legendary San Francisco Mint. It's smaller, slightly more delicate than the bold D from Denver, but that subtle detail makes all the difference. Now here's where things get really interesting. A typical 1943S in fine condition might look dull gray, with faint wheat stalks and a soft Lincoln portrait. Nothing flashy at first glance. But sometimes, hidden in those faint details, lies something extraordinary, like a doubled mint mark, a misaligned die, or a faint lamination crack from the zinc coating peeling just slightly during the striking process. Any one of these minor imperfections could turn this humble penny into a rare collector's piece. In today's market, a standard circulated 1943S steel penny might sell for just 25 to 75 cents, depending on where. But step up to a crisp and circulated example with its original shine, and you're looking at $20 to $60 easily. Not bad for a penny that cost the mint less than a fraction of a cent to produce. But here's where jaws drop. A 1943S penny with a verified minting error like a doubled die or that elusive 1943S copper planchet can sell for prices that seem unreal. One such coin, struck accidentally on a bronze planchet, was sold for a heart-stopping $504,000 at auction. Imagine that, $500,000 for a coin most people would overlook as scrap metal. It's stories like these that fuel the passion of every collector watching right now. Because even though the odds are slim, they're not impossible. Somewhere out there, another 1943S with the hidden error might be sitting in a jar, waiting to be discovered. That thought alone is what keeps the hunt alive. That chance that one day, you'll be the one to pull a six-figure treasure from a pile of old change. So, how can you tell if your 1943S steel penny could be the next big discovery? First, check the weight. Steel pennies weigh about 2.7 grams, but if yours weighs closer to 3.1 grams, it might be one of those bronze planchet errors. Then, grab a magnet. A genuine steel scent sticks firmly, while a copper one won't. And if you happen to find a non-magnetic 1943S, you might just be holding the holy grail of Lincoln cents, even in fine condition. This coin story is incredible, a survivor from wartime America, made of borrowed metal, representing sacrifice and ingenuity. And for collectors today, that history, that legacy, is priceless. So don't underestimate the 1943S. That tiny S under the date could turn your ordinary penny into an extraordinary fortune. Now, let's talk about the most common of all the steel wheat pennies, the 1943 with no mint mark. At first glance, it looks ordinary. No D, no S, just the date 1943 and Abraham Lincoln's face staring back from that cool gray steel surface. But don't be fooled by its simplicity, because the Philadelphia Mint's 1943 cent has one of the wildest stories in all of coin collecting. During the chaos of World War II, the Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of these steel cents, more than any other U.S. mint that year. They were meant to be temporary, a quick solution to America's copper shortage. The idea was simple: make the penny from steel, coat it in zinc to prevent rusting, and save the copper for the war effort. But what happened next was something no one expected. The zinc coating didn't hold up. These coins rusted, corroded, and discolored quickly, especially when exposed to moisture. By 1944, they were already being pulled from circulation because people confused them for dimes, or worse, because they turned dark, spotty, and ugly with age. Many ended up tossed aside, discarded, or forgotten. The coin we're talking about today, a 1943 no mint mark penny in no fine condition, is exactly the kind of piece most people ignore. Maybe it's dark, pitted, or rusty. The details might be faint, the wheat stalks barely visible, Lincoln's face softly worn. But here's the catch, even in rough shape, this coin holds the potential for something far more valuable than anyone expects. Because sometimes, in those battered coins, hide the rarest errors ever created by the U.S. Mint. And the Philadelphia Mint, with its massive production that year, accidentally let a few unbelievable mistakes slip through. One of them, the 1943 bronze copper planchet penny, has become legendary. It shouldn't exist, but it does. Only a few were ever made, and they've broken record after record in auctions. One example, graded and authenticated, sold for an astonishing $1.75 million. Think about that for a moment. A penny that cost a fraction of a cent to make, now worth more than most people's homes. That's the kind of discovery that keeps collectors searching, year after year. And it all starts with an innocent-looking, worn-out coin that most folks would overlook as worthless. Now, here's where things get exciting. Even a heavily circulated 1943 steel penny can still sell for a small premium, maybe 10 to 50 cents, depending on its look. But if you find one with unusual features like a double die, off-center strike, or a missing zinc layer revealing the dark steel underneath, its value can multiply fast. A dramatic minting flaw, especially one verified by a grading service, can turn a damaged coin into a collectible worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars. And if your coin looks odd, say it has a reddish tone, doesn't stick to a magnet, or feels slightly heavier, then stop everything. You could be holding the ultimate mint mistake. A bronze 1943 cent from Philadelphia. Only a handful are known, and each one is worth a fortune. Collectors have spent decades scouring old jars, estate sales, and flea markets for one more of these elusive pennies. And here's the best part, people still find them. Just a few years ago, a young collector discovered one mixed with junk change in his father's collection and sold it for over $200,000. That's the kind of real-life miracle that keeps the hobby alive. So even if your 1943 no mint mark penny looks rough, don't dismiss it. Every scratch, every patch of rust might hide a deeper secret. Check the color, test it with a magnet, and look closely for anything unusual. Because one small detail could mean the difference between a coin worth a dime and a coin worth a lifetime of dreams. Now, here's where things take a fascinating twist. The coin that shouldn't even exist in steel. The 1944 wheat penny is a true legend in American coin history. And believe it or not, this rusty, dark, time-worn coin you're looking at right now might just be the most shocking one of them all. Let's go back for a moment. The year is 1944. The war is still raging, but America's industry is shifting. The U.S. Mint decides to stop making steel cents because the public hated them. They rusted, they stuck to magnets, they confused people for dimes. So in 1944, the mint officially returned to copper, melting down shell casings recovered from military training fields to strike the new pennies. Every 1944 cent, in theory, should have been made of bronze. Every single one, except a few. Here's where the mystery begins. At the San Francisco Mint, somehow, and no one knows exactly how, a few leftover steel planchets from 1943 slipped back into the presses. They were struck with 1944 dies, creating one of the most incredible minting mistakes in U.S. history. The 1944 steel penny. Experts estimate that fewer than 30 examples exist today. Each one is so rare, so unbelievably valuable, that the mere sight of one makes collectors' hearts stop. Now, imagine holding one in your hand, but this one's not shiny. It's full of rust, darkened by time, the zinc long gone. At first glance, it looks worthless. Maybe something you'd find at the bottom of an old coffee can in a garage. But under that layer of rust, history is hiding. Because even in full rusty condition, this 1944 could still be a treasure unlike anything you've ever seen. Let's talk value. A standard 1944 copper penny, even in great shape, might only bring a few cents, maybe $1 or $2. But a genuine 1944S steel penny, that's a whole different world. In recent years, authenticated examples have sold for prices so high, they almost sound made up. One sold for $408,000, another for over $500,000, and one pristine example, verified and certified, hit an unbelievable $1.1 million at auction. And here's the twist that blows everyone's mind: even coins in rough, corroded, rusty condition still sell for tens of thousands of dollars, if they're the real deal. Because rarity beats beauty every single time. Collectors don't just see the rust, they see the story, the survival, the miracle that this coin even exists. So, how can you tell if your rusty 1944S penny is just a damaged copper cent, or a six-figure mistake? Start with a magnet. A regular 1944S bronze penny won't stick. But if yours jumps to the magnet, that's when your heart starts to race. Because that's the sign of steel, and steel means something went terribly wrong at the mint that year. This is what makes coin collecting so powerful. Every coin tells a story, a history, of human error, of time itself. And sometimes, that story turns a forgotten coin into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. So don't be fooled by the rust. Don't overlook the dirt, because the ugliest coins sometimes hide the most beautiful fortunes. So, if you ever find a 1944S wheat penny that looks rusty, silvery, or magnetic, don't clean it, don't polish it, don't throw it away. That little piece of steel could be worth more than your car, your home, or even your retirement account. And that's the magic of the hunt. From the 1943D and 1943S to the 1943 no mint, and this unbelievable 1944S error. These coins remind us that history hides in the smallest places, maybe even right in your pocket.